The one
Oh,
pig
boy.
did say "eat me," though.
We're alive.
That was the weirdest Ewok movie I've ever seen.
That would make more sense.
I'm in pain.
Oh yeah,
This movie was trolling us.
I'm in so much.
Oh, that's why it's called. Okay.
Okay.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
And welcome back to the Tomb of the Terrible. And I am your Uncle Necro, and I am just absolutely giddy tonight because tonight we are discussing probably one of the greatest B movies ever made, put to celluloid. We get to ask the question: what happens when an Italian director suddenly finds all of his friends turning into vegetarians? The answer: he makes the best worst movie. So tonight I'm gathered here tonight. With me is the regulars Delphine, Friday in Chaos. Dr. Raz is with us tonight, as is Pyle after a bit of a thing. And also Ron.
A breakdown.
A breakdown. So you guys excited about this? I know.
Very.
So,
God! No!
I guess.
God, please, no! 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 No!
Okay. Well,
Steve Carell.
That just summed everything up really quick.
I do have to say deep hurting. Yep. I was just about to fly that little warning there because this may be the greatest B movie ever made, but it's also possibly one of the worst movies ever made. Enough so that they actually one of the former stars actually made a documentary about it later on in life, which is a great movie called Best Worst Movie. However, we're discussing Troll 2. So, show of hands, how many people was this the first time ever watching this movie? Okay, Ron, Del, Pyle. Ooh, this is going to be fun.
That was
so
half of us. Wow.
Yeah, wow. So we're going to start with Del. We're going to talk about what our initial reaction was to the first time watching this. Del, go ahead.
My favorite part of this movie was the poster on the kids' wall for Joker House of Fun, which is a throwback reference to the previous year's release of Alan Moore's The Killing Joke. This is not intentionally put into the movie for any reason other than it was a poster that would have been popular at that point in time. But that was my favorite part of the movie. I had some serious issues watching this. The acting, the script, the plot, the green food, the fact that everyone ate their corn on the cob raw, and that it exists. After I got done watching this movie, I went to reading something. And you know how you have the voices in your head and the characters doing their things when you're reading and it's in your head and you have that nice little picture going. All of the characters suddenly in my new book that was not related to this movie in any way, shape, or form other than they both include words, they all started acting really badly. And
Damn
I
it,
don't
Del.
know why.
I'm gonna let you piss on hospitality.
I won't allow it.
I found if you read this, we have celebrate one of the most disrespected horror films in recent history and fall in love with this general failure or genuine failure. But yeah, I still get that you're gonna say it was one. I waited my whole life to, like, I've heard of this movie for a decade, and I was like, I'm gonna wait till we do it, so it'll be my first view. And I've waited for over a year now, and that is what happened to me. I'm going to start a support group. If you guys would like to join, I'll get information up later. Maybe we'll do a subreddit, Discord channel, get some group therapy. There might be a medication for this. I'm not really sure.
There is over a dozen support groups for people who were traumatized by this movie. I'm not even joking. They are on Reddit. They were on AOL back in the day. Like, there are actual groups of people that are like the anti, oh my God, Troll 2 is amazing group. Like, they just hate Troll 2. They talk about how terrible it is all the time. They analyze every second of the movie and just are generally depressed together.
Okay, I will not be forming my own group. I will be joining a support group that has been previously made. That was my yeah.
Okay, moving along. Friday, what was the first time you watched Troll 2?
Sometime after it came out on the TV at my house in Sunny Daisy, and then I probably watched it a few times afterwards, enough to make my mom aggravated.
Nice.
Once is enough.
Chaos?
I would be aggravated as your mother.
Chaos, what was your first time?
The first time I watched it, I think it was about 2000. I randomly stumbled across it, just popped up on a movie channel one day. I was just flipping through channels and was like, what's this? And for some reason, I wanted to change the channel, but I physically couldn't. It had my brain locked to where I could not press the channel up button. Yeah,
It was hypnotic.
It broke my brain the first time.
Oh, yes. Hypnotoad, if you will. So, Raz?
Yeah.
Well, it was October. I was 9 years old, 1990. And it had aired on, I think it was HBO or Cinemax, one of those, or Showtime. I think it was HBO, though. And at the time, the only person I knew that had HBO was my aunt. My mother would give her large amounts of cassette tapes, and she had a VCR, and she would tape everything off of all the paid channels for us so we could watch them at home. Just something we did all the time. We had mounds and mounds and mounds of all these tapes that had labels and shit of all the different movies that were on them. And I got that tape on a Sunday, and I watched the shit out of it. And I had seen Troll 1. Troll 1 actually is amongst the few films of all time that terrified me as a child. And it was all because of the main troll. The artwork on the cover, the whole opening of the movie, like Troll 1, he just traumatized the shit out of me. So I saw Troll 2 and I'm like, I'm ready. I can do this. I can see him again. And finally get over my fear. And obviously I realized it had nothing to do with the first one, which was kind of disappointing. But I was just in awe because, you know, I've talked a lot about movies that made me want to be a filmmaker. But I think that was the first time ever in my life I thought, I think I can make a movie. And not because I thought it was bad, because I thought it was good, but it was so simply done without all these effects and all these things that 8-year-old me was just so interested in how the movie was being made that it wasn't until I think my third watch through that I actually paid attention to what the movie was and the dialogue and everything. I was just so enamored on the way it was made, I guess. And then I had to show my brother, and then we showed it to Mom, and she had questions, and that ruined it all for me. Because they were all right.
All right. So, Pyle, this was your first time. Why don't you tell us what you initially thought? Your initial thoughts on this, sir.
Okay, so I totally said I was going to watch it this weekend, and the way that this got played out, no kidding, was went to Columbus, had a special event with my son, and we got in the hotel room. We started watching this. Even he was just like, what is this? So the next night, one of his friends from this event was in the hotel room. They were in the room right beside of us, no problem. And that person looked at it and goes, why are you watching this? I said, have you watched this? Yeah. I was like, I gotta watch this. And she said, no, you don't. I went through it. Yeah. But Raz, I totally agree with you. After watching this, I feel like I can make a movie too.
Excellent.
It took them 2 weeks, and they had old age equipment, not what we have now, but it took them only 2 weeks to make that whole movie.
And it shows.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Ron, what were your initial thoughts on after watching this?
All right, so here's the thing. The one thing that nobody's mentioned up to this point is that the movie is called Troll 2, and it has absolutely nothing to do with trolls. It's really about goblins, and goblins and trolls are not the same thing. Therefore, I'm inclined to believe that the director was way ahead of its time in its terminology, that he was actually trolling his audience by making a statement about vegetarianism, and that's entirely what this movie is about, and nothing more. And I know that's complete bullshit, because it started out very much like the beginning of The Princess Bride, with the kid in bed and the grandfather's reading a story to the kid. It's just like The Princess Bride. So, you know, that was my first initial thought, was like, okay, this is going to be like kind of a flashback or a fantastic movie, like they did with The Princess Bride. But then that's not it at all. And it just kept going. And I found myself kind of like chaos going, I can't stop watching this, even though I really want to. And because I found myself thinking, okay, at some point it's going to have to make sense. They're going to explain things, and eventually the storyline's going to start to make sense. But it doesn't. And it never does. And there's no explanation for it. And it just keeps going. And I felt like it was like watching Whose Line Is It Anyway, with scenes from Hat, where you take strips of paper with certain scenes on it, and you throw them into a hat, and they say, okay, what do we do next? So let's pull a scene out of the hat. Oh, this is good. Let's do this one. We got some spoiled milk, and we want people to drink the milk. Or, you know, we're going to turn this kid into a plant. And he's going to have, you know, this thing over his face that make him look like Groot. It was just And then the witch, no backstory whatsoever. She just shows up out of the blue. There's really no explanation for her. Like maybe I guess she was supposed to be the queen of the goblins, or they were her creations, or I don't know. I never really caught that because they don't actually explain anything in this entire movie. But the acting was so gloriously bad that it's like watching a train wreck. I mean, you can't tear yourself away from it, and you just like, where is this going? What is this leading up to? And so it's the kind of movie that after I watched it once, I would feel like I would need to go back and watch it again because maybe I missed something the first time that would make it make sense. But then I watched the documentary, Best Worst Movie, and I have to say it made all the difference in the world for this movie because honestly, everybody in this movie feels the same way about this movie that we do. They all think it sucks too. And they didn't understand it, and it made no sense to them either. And it just sort of gave me a new appreciation for it. And I'm like, all right, it's, now because of that, I can sort of enjoy the movie for that reason. And it just, if I hadn't watched the documentary, it would have completely changed my opinion and my attitude about this movie. But because I did watch the documentary, I'm actually not as disagreeable on it as I probably would have been without it.
Very good. Well, as far as I go, my first time was, and every time I say that, it makes it sound like we're talking about something else entirely, by the way. The first time I was building myself up, but it turned out to be awful. Anyway, my first time, basically, I kind of did it bass backwards in that I was renting out the basement of my friend's house in Omaha around 2011, and he had Netflix. So I was watching his Netflix kind of popping through, and that's when I saw. At this point, I hadn't seen Troll 2. I've heard of it, but I didn't really feel much like watching it at the time. But then I came across this movie on Netflix called Best Worst Movie, a documentary done by the guy who played the son in the movie. And so I thought, why not? I watched it, and I was just transfixed. At first, I thought the Netflix was playing the wrong movie because this was clearly about a dentist who was really, really outgoing, apparently, but led into the history behind. Like Ron said, it'll give you a new appreciation. But since I watched that first, and going through watching it all and thinking, okay, and the director. Oh my gosh, he everywhere he went, he'd just get frustrated because nobody could understand his genius behind making this movie. But the point is, after watching the documentary, I thought I must watch the movie itself now, and I did. And from the first minute, from the costumes, from within that story that the grandpa was telling the boy, to the acting, to some of the very questionable shots, like the close-up of Grandpa's mouth for some odd reason within the first 5 minutes of the movie, I was transfixed. I was hooked in. Like, this, every second of this, it was just an experience that, you watch a movie and you can tell that, a movie of this caliber, a lot of the actors are just kind of going through the motions. Everybody was just hamming it up so much that I couldn't help but just get sucked into the entire thing, no matter how bad this was. And thus, this became one of the top 3 of the best of the bad movies that I remember watching. And so we're going to start our next little bit where, okay, so this is essentially a movie that, as mentioned before, the director, and I believe it was mentioned that the director's wife wrote the script because they were frustrated that everybody they knew were turning to vegetarianism. So they made this movie as their little outspoken thoughts on the whole vegetarian thing. And it's basically about a family that trades places with a farmer family into a very, very small town that discover that everybody there has food that will turn them into plant-based items so that goblins can eat them. That's the basic premise of the movie. Wackiness ensues. So I'm going to start by having everybody discuss what they really liked about this movie. And Del, aside from the poster, was there anything else? I mean, there was a lot of unintentional pop culture items in this movie. Like you see the Smurfs and, very like Disney products. I'm pretty sure those weren't cleared while this movie was made, but that was just me. But Del, was there anything else you can possibly think of?
No, I think that was pretty much it. Kid had decent taste in comics. It didn't help, but
okay.
This movie really, I really just went. I haven't I've watched something so good that it just made me cry for hours afterwards, and it's been so beautiful and inspiring. And this is like the extreme opposite of like the difference between there was that wormhole of emotion coming to me from those other movies, and this is like a black hole attached to my brain.
Was that movie The Exorcist 3 perchance?
Well, that would be one of the experiences that I've had, yes. But it
Okay.
you get where I'm coming from.
Oh
I
yeah.
think.
Oh yeah.
I have glasses on, or you would see the 1,000-yard stare that has not left me since I was done with this.
Yeah, I understand. So in that case,
Friday?
Yeah.
I love the whole ghost grandpa thing. I love the over-the-top creature. The witch was fun. And I think those are my favorite characters out of the whole movie.
Okay. Chaos?
The one interesting thing I could think of was the fact that one scene in this movie was turned into a meme at
Okay.
They're eating her. Oh my god. Yeah.
So, all right. So, Raz, I know you have a lot of information here, but I'm going to, for reasons, go with Pyle's possibly favorite part.
So when I was like looking at this and I was like, oh, well, this is going to be a horror movie, this and that. There's one scene that the girl is running into the woods and the guy is absolutely chasing her down and this and that. Well, then she is surrounded by all these goblins. And I was just amazed at they're not moving. I can't tell if these are actual people or if these are like different things. And the massive amount of usage of something that looked like paper mache, that that's what creeped me out. So I gotta say my favorite part was that, just because it actually creeped me out, because those faces were so deformed, they looked horrible, and it was just, that is not movie magic. That is something I don't want to find in a barn. But yeah, I mean, when just looking at those things is what made me feel very uncomfortable. And I looked at Jay and I said, so you like that? And he goes, don't make me wear that. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up before, but yeah, that's actually one of my favorite things of this movie that they did well, is when you go and you make something that's supposed to be a scary or a horror movie, you got to make something that gets somebody's attention, that doesn't make them feel comfortable. 90% of this was just so out there, it didn't register, but the faces on those things, it looked like Play-Doh gone to hell.
Yeah, Del?
Okay, so my commentary on your scene that you just brought up is why he was chasing her through the woods. Because
I wasn't bringing that up, Del.
Because so the family goes on vacation. There's this off-story thing with the daughter's boyfriend, who he hangs out with his friends more than he does her, and she's making him choose. And so he says he's going on vacation. So he loads up his friends in a camper thing, and they drive out. And he's told them that there are all these hot single women hanging around there. And so one of them has gone. One of them goes out to have a breath of fresh air, he says, with his cigarette, and sees this screaming woman running. And he's like, a woman! They have them here! And he doesn't say, like, what's wrong at all as she's screaming and dripping green. He's just like, wait! And, like, ends up tackling her to the ground and then trying to be all macho to these goblins that are almost the same height as he is. They're just, stouter, and like, look here. And he's trying to impress this woman. But he literally chased her, like, through a mile of woods just because she was a woman.
Yeah, and tackled her.
And tackled her. Not because, like, hey, what's wrong? What are you running from? But because, oh, look, woman. That happens.
It was the simple caveman approach right there.
It was a different time.
No, there was a lot different there. It wasn't the time or the place. It was the reality. Jeez, I like where you went there.
So, Ron, was there anything that you liked about the movie that stood out to you?
Anything that I liked about the movie that stood out to me?
There was a girl.
The ending when it was over, and I could tear my eyes away. To be honest with you, I actually liked the documentary better than I liked the movie itself. I don't know. I mean, there's just so much random stuff in this movie that doesn't make any sense and isn't really explained. And some things you sort of kind of get out of context, but like, I mean, the two guys in the camper, you got two, shirtless guys sleeping together in a camper, and it's like, okay, nobody questions that. Nobody says anything. It doesn't even come up. And I don't know. And like what Del is saying, that he's running after her simply because she's a girl and not because she looks like she's in trouble or anything like that. I didn't quite get the whole witch thing. I mean, was she ever explained? Because obviously the goblins answered to her, and at one point she gets her hand cut off, and she reverts to like her true goblin form, and then she goes back to, I don't know, her house, I guess, or whatever, her domicile where she lives, and she sticks her hand in something and it grows back. I'm like, what was that? That's never explained. Anything like that, or what is the glamour that's making all of these goblins look like normal people?
Well,
And when they, they drop their guises, I don't know. I don't understand it.
Well,
do they have to keep
I
eating
get
the
that.
plant-based stuff to?
I understand, Ron. I understand. But right now, we're going to address all of this. But right now, we're just going through what we liked about the movie. So, hold on. I know we want to get to the meatier part of this, I guess. But as for me, what I liked was the fact that this was amazingly crazy. But there was a couple of things. First of all, the daughter, that dance that she does while she's going, you got to choose between your friends or me. That was made up by her on the spot because she was took cheerleading in high school. And also, I have to say, my most favorite part was Deborah Reed as the Goblin Queen. She just was a vision of just hamming it up, just gleeful, like insanity, to the point of I was about to propose marriage to the screen at several points. She was amazing. I know. Yeah, I realize that this. I'm sorry, but Drew Barrymore was kind of edged off as far as my fanboy crushes go after watching this movie the first time. So, next up. Okay, what didn't we like about this movie? And Del.
Okay, so the thing with the boyfriend and like his friends just get eaten and he decides to go back to the farm and I hate you. Oh, he's one of the family now because he chose me over his friends because they weren't there. The corn thing really bothered me. They kept having them eat green food because that would turn them into the plant thing that they could eat then. And like everybody, they come over and try to give them green food, and at first the little boy gets them to not eat in a interesting fashion. Then when the whole town comes in to try to get the family to eat green food, they have like all these things they have like frosting burgers and corn on the cob that's all raw every time with green frosting on it because you eat frosting on your raw corn on the cob, I guess. And I don't know why the corn thing really bothered me as much as it did, other than what does it take to boil a couple of ears of corn so that they don't still have that like silky husk looking point going on them. I don't know. And the grandfather, we got to keep in mind here. Okay, also the dad, when he's first scolding his son, and they're just like, "Don't hit him! Don't hit him!" And it's like, oh, so this is what normally happens? Because the grandfather also says, like, I only talk to you because you listen. She doesn't listen. Otherwise, she wouldn't have married that worthless piece of crap, And so it's just like assumed that he's a bad person. They're worried about him hitting his kid, and the dead guy can't even stand him. And like is upset with his daughter because she married him that he won't even try to talk to her. He was just a horrible person. And there was this really weird thing where he kind of kept having this Henry Rollins look, and that got rather disturbing as well. I don't know. But there were so many little things that the things with the grandfather though, like, okay, so he's a ghost and he's encouraging this kid to do shit that his parents are like, what in the fuck are you doing? And it's like always something weird. Like at one point it's like, okay, we got to put out the fire. What's that? You'll see. And like hands the kid a fucking Molotov cocktail and says that he'll make a distraction with the fire extinguisher. You don't think a Molotov cocktail is a big enough distraction that, so I'd be worried if my kid said he was seeing his dead grandfather and he kept giving him weapons as well. It'd be like, yeah, I think like maybe I don't believe it so much because I didn't realize Grandpa hated us that much that he would ask you to throw in a Molotov cocktail into a room that we were trapped in by goblins. Those are some of the things that bothered me about this movie beyond its very existence. Next.
Okay, very good. Friday, was there anything about this that bothered you?
The friend thing, that bothered me a lot. The sheer, I'm not going to believe you when you say you keep seeing your dead grandfather. It had nothing to do with Trolls 1. All of the costumes were like, not what I expected. And green milk, everything's green. And I'm like, why can't you just, I love the idea of eating the raw corn. Actually, that's not bad if you're doing sweet corn. But why are we adding the green stuff on everything? I can't go on, but let somebody else have a turn.
Okay. Chaos.
As it is hard to pick out of just that whole movie. It's just holy crap.
He just simplified it right there.
It is one step above Prey, though. It still beats Prey.
We'll get to that. So,
yeah, no.
Okay.
I have successfully forgotten Prey. I would like to let you know. I am very excited about this.
I wish I could.
Until now. So, by request, I am going to pass over Dr. Raz for now and go to Pyle. Now's your chance.
So, there's so much about this movie that was conflicting, messed up. I really thought that, they could have done a lot better on so many different things. One of the most terrible things is the witch, or whatever she was, broke the fourth wall so many damn times. She did. She would basically just absolutely ha 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 ha. It's like, okay. And then she would say something and then she would talk right to the camera. It's like, okay, can you not do that? But then I realized she wasn't the only one, because the dad did it too. He would just go up and he would be talking to his son, and then he would look right at the camera. It's like, what? Why? So, I mean, one person's, okay, I messed up doing this, trickled into many people's mess ups doing this. I have to agree, the whole grandpa with the cocktail, I mean, the kid should have never had that. But you know what? It was a wonderful moment that I looked at my kid and I said, just so you know, we're clear, you're not getting that from me. And he goes, okay, I can make my own. Okay, you don't need to though. But this is one of those movies that, you kind of look at it, you poke, and you look at your kid and say, what is all wrong with this? And he goes, too much, not enough paper in a binder. But yeah, I feel like the name is very misleading, because that was one of the first things as soon as we got in the little pre-show here, I said misleading. But yeah, I mean, my brain hurts trying to think of everything that's wrong with this. So I'm going to go with the next person, because the next person I'm sure has got a whole list.
All right. So we move on now to Ron. You may proceed, sir.
I'm going to back up a little bit, because the previous question was, what did we like about the movie? And this question is, what don't we like about the movie? And I gave a whole bunch of things I didn't like about the movie on the previous question. So I'm going to back up, and I will actually tell you something that I did like about the movie.
All right.
I like the fact that they made this movie on a shoestring budget. I think it was like maybe $100,000, possibly less. And they used a bunch of no-name actors, people that didn't have any credits in acting before. They didn't really know what they were getting into, and nothing was really made clear to them. And they had to use a lot of improvisational skills, even with the very meager script that they had. And so when you look at the movie as a whole, you can certainly break it down and say, this is so much wrong with this movie. It's terrible. But when you put all of that together into a combined amalgamation, then you start to see that it's so bad that it's good. It's like the bad acting. We've watched movies with bad acting before. I mean, Thanksgiving was atrocious, but we love that movie. We all like Thanksgiving because it was just complete inanity. And this is kind of the same way. I feel like it's on the same level as Thanksgiving, when, you know, it's a bunch of amateur actors, don't really know what they're doing. They made the movie in a very short amount of time for very little money. They used what they had available to work with an Italian actor coming over to America, thinking he knows what America is about. And quite frankly, after watching the documentary, I really felt like the director was kind of a dick, because he kept referring to his actors as dogs and, you know, saying, you don't understand. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't remember. You're a bad actor. And I mean, this is classic, you know, reflect. You know, he's deflecting everything. Instead of saying, okay, yeah, I made a bad movie. It kind of sucks. I'm sorry. You know, he didn't do that. You know, people didn't really understand it, and somehow it became a cult phenomenon. And I get it, because it's so bad and there's so much wrong with it. But when you take it all together and you look at like the gestalt of it, it's entertaining. It really is. It's an entertaining movie to watch. And despite how bad it is, I still enjoyed it.
Okay. Huh. That took a turn. But, so I have to, as far as I go, there is a list of things that I just don't understand why they went with this direction. And it has nothing to do with the fact that, as everybody else has brought up, that there are no actual trolls in Troll 2. I understand the reason why it was labeled this. But my complaints would actually be with one, the tackling scene in the woods. That just doesn't seem, even back then, that didn't seem. I would say that would never really fly, even, you know, not even talking about now, because you don't generally do that. No, stop, wait, tackle. And she seemed fine with it. Like, it's not, but that's neither here nor there. I was greatly amused by the over-the-top ranting about meat that the preacher did. It was like, oh, bacon, ooh, pork chops, yada, yada, yada. And, you know, and
that part made me hungry.
Oh, yeah. So, and And Del, you had something to add.
In the car scene, when they're driving up, they're trying to dissuade an argument. And it's like, what was his name? Joshua, the kid, Joshua, wasn't it? Joshua,
Yeah, Joshua.
sing my favorite song. Please sing my
Yes.
favorite song. Row, row, row your what the fuck? I mean, if it was, like sing that car song, that would make sense. But it was sing my favorite song. Woman? I don't even know what radio station you get. But did you maybe none, since she was like a little one. She's like, I sing songs from the playground. That's all I sing. That's all I know.
What would
I
have been
remember
better,
my
Row,
year
Row,
one
Row Your
musical.
Boat or 99 bottles of beer on the wall?
But I mean, like it was the way it was phrased. It wasn't like sing the car song or let's do an activity that bonds the family. It was sing my favorite song or whatever.
Yeah, that was something that me and Budsy absolutely looked at each other and said, "We travel, we don't sing that."
Sorry for that, squirrel, but
yeah, I would. No worries. I would have laughed if like, sing my favorite song, and he just starts going back in black, out of the sack. It's been too long. I'm glad to be back. Yep, that's it. But anyway, right. But also, my biggest thing is the fact that the daughter was kind of a jerk to her boyfriend because she kept saying, it's either me or your friends. And to that, I would have to quote, if you want to be my lover, you got to hang with my friends.
That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
I mean, she was just animate about it's your friends or me. And I got to go bros before hoes, I guess. Is that how that goes? But it rhymes.
It could.
It works. He decided to join us. I'm like, you gotta join the tomb. You're watching them anyway. And then here he is.
Yes.
I can understand bros before hoes and the way that he was, or I think it's that the general gist of me or my friends is a shitty attitude to have. But he brought his friends to go climb a ladder up to her window. Like, that is a little creepy. That's more like, if you can't go chat with your girlfriend without your friends climbing up to her bedroom window as well in the middle of the night, that might be a little bit too much before bros. You go out with the bros, you don't bring the bros to the house.
And parents never said anything.
Yeah. They don't care. I mean, obviously. They just didn't give a shit about their kids, really.
Well, they did because they looked in on him and said, "Oh, you're still awake." Close the door. But also, and this is a big thing, I like drinking milk, but I really have a thing about I always have to smell it and check for any kind of chunks in there, and every time I see chunks, I blow chunks. I don't have to take a drink. If I see the chunks, I blow the chunks. That's how it works. And this movie, if you have that kind of aversion, you might want to look away for a couple of scenes because there's like chunky, milky stuff. Even what they called ice cream was kind of gross that they tried to feed the kid. So, all right. So that means that there's one person left, and we'll just sit back and relax and let Dr. Raz take over for a few minutes at least. Go ahead, sir.
This is where I'm going to flex my honorary doctorate in pop culture. I've oddly dissected this film for pop culture class previously. This and They Live are the two films I've done this with. You've just watched 3 different films. Believe it or not, you've watched 3 separate films. And let me explain. One is also is my rebuttal to most of what you guys have said that are negative. Not that I'm saying that they're not negative things, but to explain. Film 1 was the film that the director set out to make, and the director that he believes, the film that him and many other people believe exists. An Italian scriptwriter and an Italian director, a couple, purchased the rights to make a Troll 2 movie because it was very popular at the time for foreign countries, especially Italy, to pay to get an IP, and create a movie. This happened frequently. Look it up. It's a lot more common than you think, especially in horror. So the concepts, there were 2 different concepts that they both had when coming out this movie. One, the writer, the vegetarian conversation we've already had, not going to rehash it. That's where she was coming from. Her entire point was about vegetarianism. His point, however, and the point that's actually more prominent than the vegetarianism, is how European people see American culture. The director intentionally set out to make this the most American movie that had ever been made. He based different characters on some of the most famous American comedies and American movies up to that point in his head. So, also, a lot of European countries are known to be 30 years behind what America has in terms of like shows, music. It's not the case everywhere. Now that's a much shorter gap. But when he started making this film in the 80s and conceiving it with his wife, this was still the case in some countries. So his envisioning was, okay, this is a movie. It's going to be an 80s movie because it's in the 80s, but this is a small town. And from what I know of America, small towns like this are much like our towns where they're like way behind what's going on. So we also need to give a lot of these characters a 50s vibe. So that's the whole premise. That's literally everything. The Disney references, all that shit, were intentional by him because Disney was American and he didn't give a shit about being sued because he's Italian. I shit you not. He has gone on record and said that very thing. The trolls and really old folklore, especially European folklore, goblins, trolls are lumped into the same category, the same fucking category. They are an interchangeable word, actually. Look this up. It's actually true. So he did not know, he did not make a movie that didn't have a troll in it because it was an interchangeable word. In fact, if you watch the documentary, you actually get to see the first moment ever that he realized his interpretation was different from everyone else's, because in the documentary, someone mentions, like Ron said, you used to be in a movie called Troll 2 without trolls, and he's like, what do you mean there's no trolls then? He didn't understand. They had to translate that for him a couple times. He's like, and his wife looks up and goes, we called them goblins. And he's like, that's his whole reaction. And in an interview later that I saw in person, he discusses the interchangeability between the words, and he did not realize that Americans didn't know this and that it wasn't common. The mom's favorite song being "Row, Row Your Boat." He saw her as an uneducated 50s or 50s stay-at-home mom, and his concept for American culture, the most important song to a mom would be a song that brought families together. And because "Row, Row Your Boat" is a car song and there's layers you have to sing, it promotes creativity versus coming together and like building this thing in stages or whatever. It's family working together. That's why that was her favorite song. Now, all these things and pretty much everything else that you guys mentioned that was wrong with it, if you look at it from the lens of the creator and what he thinks this movie is, that's a different movie than what you just watched, but it's still a movie that a lot of people watched. Second movie is the movie you actually watched, and it is the biggest clusterfuck of that era. Have there been way worse movies with way worse clusterfucks? Oh, yeah. Trust me, believe it or not, they're out there. But what this movie did was fail more spectacularly than any of them because, one, it had a way bigger budget than most of the movies that are worse, and many that are better than it. So it had all this money. It had an actually pretty decent behind-the-scenes crew, people that had a lot of experience, but they were all Italian. Even a lot of the backstage crew, so there was a lot of communication barriers with the cast. Pyle, why were they looking into the camera? They weren't. What happened was none of them knew when to cut. It was not clear. So they would do multiple takes, and in some takes he would just sit there. And so eventually they would just start to kind of look over the camera to kind of what's going on. And there were plenty of takes when none of them did look at the camera. But the director wanted to edit it that way, because that was a very American thing to do in his mind. So like all these terrible things that happen on set, like the weird situations, the awkwardness, again, definitely, like everyone said, watch the documentary. It will explain some of what I'm saying right now. It was because it was a very weird situation that everyone that wasn't the Italian crew were in. They were called dogs. On set, they were often called American dogs, not just dogs. That should be pointed out that he, for the documentary, didn't say American dogs, but he often said American dogs because that's what this was to him. Again, so there were lots of problems, and it made a bad movie. It ruined some people. The mom, you see a lot of that in the documentary, but what a lot of it doesn't show is that was what she thought was going to be her big shot in acting and take off her whole career, and she'd never really done anything at all before that. But like she'd had this dream since a child, and she comes from a very abusive family. She does this, and everyone literally laughs at her. And her mom weaponized it against her and used it against her and beat her down until until she pretty much just lost her damn mind. Kind of like Shelley Duvall, only sadder, actually, and not public at all. So the person she became was because of, her family, but this movie kind of propelled her into that. The rest of them, yeah. Two of them were actors and had been in commercials and like some bit parts. The sister, she was an actress before that. It almost ruined her career, and she's afraid to put it on her resume. That part she talks about in the interview. A lot of people just thought that their shit was going to take off, man. Right now, okay, back to the first movie. The first version of this movie I mentioned, you talk about him tackling the girl. That was very American for the guy that just go after the girl and do that and take charge like caveman style. That was, I forgot to cover that rebuttal in the first movie that you didn't see. Okay, so yeah, bad movie, terrible fucking movie. Will not disagree with you. I'd give it a solid 2 or 3 in normal conditions. But the third movie you watched, which is the movie a lot of us watched, it was our Killer Tomatoes. It was our Rocky. And you might scoff when I say Rocky or Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. But at the end of the day, did you know Attack of the Killer Tomatoes had the very first ever live screen acting before Rocky? Did you guys know that? Yeah. They did a live screen where actors would stand in front of the old screens in black and white back in the day and perform it in front of the screen, just like Rocky. So this was a thing before Rocky that people, seem to credit it to Rocky. Did you know Troll 2 does this as well? It's a thing. I've been to 2 of these where they screen the actual movie without the actors and they screen it with, and there's like a little mini con, and a lot of the stars, show up to it sometimes in its community. This is that for so many people, a movie that made no goddamn sense, that actually hurt a lot of people. You gonna tell me Rocky didn't hurt careers of a number of people? It did. They went through some crazy shit. Does that movie make a lot of sense? Fuck no, but it's brilliant. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, they're killing tomatoes. None of it makes fucking sense. But yet, these movies are the movies that brought so many fucking people together, like we talked about with Monster, Killer Sofa. These movies made people. They made relationships. They are the foundation of what, if Killer Tomatoes is the 70s representation of B, Rocky is the 80s interpretation of B. In a lot of ways, the actual film version, not the play. And 90s is that for Troll 2. And there's movies that come out ever so often. Monster, I'll argue, is that for the 2000s. Like, there are movies in each decade that become way more important than the sum of its parts. And because of all these 3 movies that you saw in one, whether you realized you weren't watching them or not, it is so wildly interpretable. The witch, she was the green witch. She could shapeshift. She wasn't actually the queen of trolls. She could shapeshift. That was actually shapeshifter culture. Why could they just suddenly be people and trolls? Because in folklore, trolls and goblins and things like that, fake creatures, could do that. So there's a lot of, logical things based on older folklore that people might not know, that those people that saw the third version of this movie when they watched it and kept watching it, they saw these things. They saw what Ron mentioned, the love and passion of the crew. They were half terrified out of their minds and confused most of the times. And that documentary, they talk about how that, like, all the American crew or cast members, they stuck together. They talked. They spent every day on the porch trying to make sense of what the fuck they were doing, because they had no idea, but they did it anyway. 1, because they thought that this would make them. 2, because it was the most interesting that had ever happened to them, and they thought that what they were making, although they questioned it, they thought it was going to be the third movie the whole time. And when they all saw the community that built up around them, everybody's lives, except for, again, the actress who played the mom, all of their lives got better because of it. And it brought them together. It gave them a sense of being again, and it gave them a sense of accomplishment, regardless of having made the worst movie ever made. And again, I don't have a lot more to say than that, but those are all 3 movies in one that you just watched. And I hope that explains a little bit of, I don't know, anything. Maybe it does.
Everybody, I believe we just got owned by the doctor himself. Round of applause. Good job, sir. Good job. Thank you.
If you hated it and you think it's a bad movie, keep calling it a bad movie because it is a bad movie. You're not wrong.
It is. It is, but it's a gloriously great bad movie. So, let's see. Should we move on to the 5-star reviews? Sure.
I can't
Yes.
imagine there are any, but okay.
There
are.
Oh, yes. There are quite a bit, actually. So, A Movie Worth Dying For by definitely not Abraham Lincoln. Eat Your Heart Out, John Wilkes Booth. Troll 2 is a film worth dying for. This masterpiece has absolutely no sense of direction and is an unintelligent mess. The pidgin English that the characters speak is the direct result of the director, screenwriter, and his wife's fractured and very rudimentary understanding of the English language. You'll enjoy syntactically broken sentences. Did I even pronounce that correctly? I don't care. Delivered with infectiously contradictory, vivacious, lifeless. Holy cow, this guy is just verbose. Anyway, just makes no sense at all. So, moving on to the next one. It's a rare miracle for this many talentless people to all come together and agree on what is indisputably the worst vision in Hollywood history. From the atrocious script to the awful acting to the random directorial close-ups, Troll 2 fails in every artistic manner possible. It's not just kind of bad or bad in parts or misunderstood. It's literally a 90-minute train wreck that only gets worse and worse as it goes along. Luckily, that is exactly what makes it a cult classic. And I'll just do one more here. Disclaimer, this movie is regarded as one of the worst movies I've created. So why a 5-star rating? The thing is, the creators of this movie set out to make a legitimate horror film. They failed miserably. Words cannot describe just how far away from true horror this movie is. They inadvertently made a hilarious comedy. And it just keeps going from there. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. They all give them 5-star reviews because it's so bad it's good. So, Del, I believe you have one from IMDb. You are muted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is the featured review on IMDb. Utterly flawless. This is the best movie ever made. Nothing I have experienced has displayed the degree of perfection attained by the geniuses, yes, geniuses, and nothing less, behind Troll 2. The storyline is gripping, believable, and damn scary. The Waits family is on a month-long vacation in the country town of Nilbog as part of the family exchange program. They leave the modern conveniences of their home to rough it in Nilbog's rural setting. I'm on the edge of my seat already, but wait, there's more. Young Joshua's deceased grandpa Seth comes back from the grave to warn the family of Nilbog's dangers. The beautiful Holly Waits' boyfriend tags along with his blatantly homoerotic chums. There's something strange about the curiously unrefrigerated Nilbog milk. Oh, and did I forget to mention that the town is full of goblins? The acting in this film can be summed up in one word and one word only: super fine. Every member of the Waits family was portrayed realistically and intriguingly. The chemistry between Elliott and Holly was so intense that I would be surprised to hear that there was not something going on off camera. The town matriarch has full command of the screen whenever she graces it with her presence. One actor takes the cake, however. Scene sealer Draco Floyd as the store owner is a sight to behold. He truly takes this movie that extra step into masterpiece. Watch for him. He'll give you chills. The special effects are over the top of the line for 1992, and some of these techniques are still used today. Watch for the spear throwing, the regeneration of Credence's hand, Grandpa Seth in the mirror, the shirt buttoning scene, the vegetable transformations, the popcorn scene, and of course, the goblin costumes. The underlying social commentary of Troll 2 was truly ahead of its time. Homosexuality is dealt with on many different levels. Elliott and his boys are obviously repressed closet homosexuals. Theirs is a constant struggle for acceptance into the Waits family. The town of Nilbog is in fact run by a lesbian who lusts after Holly Waits and takes great pleasure in the demasculinization of Arnold. Vegetarianism is approached more directly. The goblins turn their human victims into vegetables before devouring them. This says in no uncertain terms that everything you eat, plant or animal, was alive once, and killing is still killing. Troll 2 takes a chilling look at organized religion in the sermon scene. The preacher, played by my father, I'm pretty sure of it, has his congregation in the palms of his hands and easily turns them against the lovable, freckled Joshua. Power like that belongs in no one man's hands. On the whole, realism sells Troll 2. It's scary because it could happen. Don't watch this one alone or at night, but do watch it. You won't forget it.
It happens in like Ohio like at least 3 times a year.
Wow, that's really
that reading was amazing, Del.
Well, the needle on my sarcasm meter was just buried into the red.
Well, I mean, we're pretty much all writers here, so we know good literary writing when we hear it, and that was just chef's kiss. That was probably one of the best reviews I have ever heard for a movie. That was top of the line. That was primo right there.
That makes
That's why
me
I
want to
had
watch
to
the
read that
movie.
one.
I'm inspired now for OLF. We need to do a segment that's just us rewriting like the plots to like really bad movies or just movies or whatever, and like telling it like that. Like that would be.
You realize with my background in sound editing, Ron, why I could take what you just said and edit it down to that's chef's kiss. Mwah. That was the best movie ever made. And just put it there.
Because we could use that as a soundbite on the show.
Or at least they can use it for another re-release of the movie itself. So, you know how they do the chef's kiss. This is the best ... movie. But yeah. Anyway, so we now arrive at the portion of the show that everybody is quivering to hear about. And that would be, what would be our out of 10 rating of the movie and whether or not we would recommend this to other people. So starting with Del.
Okay, so I have said before that, you know, I've upped a movie because it was better than Prey. I've given it more points. Even though I gave Prey a 0, I have given other movies more points just so they don't have to sink down that hole. This is my second 0 for this movie. Second 0 on the show. And as far as if I would suggest it to somebody...
No, God! No!
This was going to be the choice of having my friends watch at my birthday little man. She'll be out at the bar drinking and not partaking.
Yes. I mean, you can do that. That's fine. I will just be 3 sheets to the wind when you drive me home.
All right, fun. So, you're a doctor now, Freddie.
Oh, I did get a doctorate just like Raz.
Yeah. And Del.
Yeah, I have 2.
Nice.
Yeah, that was right.
I can't wait to get mine. So, So,
We'll have to send you
Dr.
the link.
Friday.
Have I shared it with anybody? Yes, you can find it in the group. The link. Kid me gave it an 8. Adult me gave it a 2. Have I talked people into watching it with me? I didn't give him a choice. I just said we're doing a triple movie. We did Trolls 1, Trolls 2, and Ghoulie. That was our Saturday.
Nice.
So,
Ghoulies is actually 4 movies.
and I should you watch it? Yes. Are you going to enjoy it? That's up to you. And yeah, that's where I am. A 2 as an adult, an 8 as a child.
Okay. Chaos?
It was a 2 when it broke my brain over 20 years ago, and it's still a 2.
Okay. Would you recommend it, though?
Probably not.
Okay. Dr. Raz.
So it's hard to rate this one, man. So I'm going to try it like this. I'll rate all 3 versions of the movie. The first one that the director made and his intention behind making it, I'm going to give it a 2. The movie that we all actually physically watched, I'm going to give it about, I'd say a 3 because I've definitely seen worse, and I try to think about that. The other movie, the movie that is Troll 2 to me, I give it a 10. It'd probably be, I doubt I'll give many things ever a 10. But yeah, for everything I explained earlier.
Okay. Would you recommend this?
Yeah, I do. Often. And in fact, that's why I put it on the wheel. I wanted to share it with you guys. It's one of the movies that's like that important to me to share to people. So, and all of your different varied reactions, yep, that's about right. Anytime I show a group of people, it's all scattered. And that's also part of the love and fun of this movie and showing it to other people.
I actually waited when I saw it was on the wheel because I've wanted to, for some reason, see this. Yeah, we have. And I was like, I will wait until the wheel spins it so that I can have it for the first time fresh on my mind. I never get that.
Broke her brain. So, Pyle. Let's see.
So I first I want to say that I would suggest this to other people, but only if Dell could read that the way she did to the people. That way they get false hopes.
That was evening soup
Saying.
level there.
But with toilet bowl, the toilet paper, it has spoken. 1 out of 10. This is a terrible movie. It is bad when children go, "You ain't going to watch that, are you?" I mean, seriously.
I'm going to tighten my belt right now so I can stave off the hunger pains of the lack of sustenance for your review.
Right. Like, seriously, I just...
Nicely done.
The thing is, I had to stop a few times, so I had to go back and watch a little bit. I was like, I remember this, and it's not getting any better. And Budsy looked at me and goes, "I'm not watching the rest of this."
Which begs the question, if you saw it on Tubi, then they have commercial breaks.
Yeah.
So it gives you a bit of a respite. So you still had to pause it? Okay.
Well, let me just tell you, okay? So I watched it on Tubi, but when I watched it on Tubi, I was going from this time frame and saying, okay, I got a little time, I'm going to watch this. And then I was going to watch it a little more. So I've had to go back through and go back. Okay, well, this is where I stopped. Let me go backwards just to rewatch a little bit. Oh, yeah. But I'll tell you what. Those Tide Pods are amazing because they help my brain get through this damn movie on that commercial. Did you know that Tide Pods are not to be eaten?
We learned that from the Tide Pods.
Mental bleaching. So we move on now to Ron.
I just got one thing to say. You can't piss on how bad this movie is because I won't allow it. How would I rate this movie? I'm sort of torn, just like Raz, because I mean I agree with everybody that it is a bad movie, but also just taking it from the whole gestalt of how bad it is and the fact that it became a cult phenomenon, that it's so bad it's good. It's kind of like I feel like I should give it 2 ratings as well. I put it on the same level as other movies that we've watched, like Velocipaster and Lamageddon and Thanksgiving, because it has that same kind of an entity to it. But the difference is they weren't trying to make serious movies. This one was trying to be a serious movie, and it just failed successfully. So on the one hand, I could, agree with Chaos and Friday and say it's like a 2 because it's not a good movie. But on the other hand, because it's so gloriously bad, I actually enjoyed it, and I could probably give it about, I would say maybe a 4. I don't even know if I would go a 5 because I still like Thanksgiving better. So, and I think I would have to rate Thanksgiving higher than this movie. So I don't know if I would go more than a 4 for that. I know that's not a big range, a 2 to a 4, but I have one caveat. Ordinarily, I would not recommend this movie to anybody because it is so bad, unless they watch the documentary directly after, so that they can gain that appreciation for it as well, and it may change their opinion about the movie. So, no on the one hand and yes on the other. And that's kind of how I rate the movie.
Okay. Do you recommend it?
I thought I just answered that.
If they watch the
No.
documentary
On one hand and-
first.
Okay.
No on the one hand
So-
and yes on the other, with the caveat that they watch the documentary directly after.
Well, that leaves only me, and I would say I'm going to keep this simple and say this movie gets a 9 from me altogether, because I've seen this multiple times and I get something different from it each and every time, and it entertains me to no end each time as well. Let it be the acting or the cheapness or pretty much everything. This movie is near perfection, and I would recommend each and every person see it at least once, maybe even multiple times.
Over
With or
50
without the
times here.
documentary. Nice. Now, mind you, you're talking to somebody who also in the year of 1990, a little movie called Arachnophobia came out in the theaters. I saw it, and then I saw it multiple other times, dragging my sister and various other friends to go see it each time too. So this movie is right up my alley. You're talking to a guy who
If we
I've
do-
seen. I'm sorry?
If we do an episode of the Arachnophobia, I'm not going to be there because I refuse to do the spiders. Thank you.
That was a Hollywood movie, though.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, not the spiders.
I think the only movie that I've seen over 50 times would be Manos, the Hand of Fate, but that's just me. So, any case, we need to pay some bills at the moment, then we'll come back and do the wheel. Let's do this.
A sec. I lost the videos. Turned them off.
Okay.
Greetings and shabebans. We are the Retro Reductibus Cephala Podcast, a long-form bi-weekly show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome.
Yeah, that sounds good, but I don't know what all those words mean.
I think what Parasite Steve's trying to say is that on Retro Reductibus, we explore a range of retro goodness, from toys, video games, and movies, to cartoons, and even snacks and school lunches.
Oh.
And we do it all with a positive spin, a slew of killer guests, and some very adult language.
And you know what else is cool?
No.
This crazy show is part of the Door King Podcast Network with new episodes every Tentacle Tuesday.
What's that?
And if waiting 2 weeks for a new episode gives you a sad, know that we drop bonus episodes all the time, like the off-format Crow's Nest and an interview series we call The Brig.
You can listen to Retro Reductibus on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any app that's cool enough to carry the only show that celebrates all the things that make growing up awesome.
You know, I was turned into a hamster. Oh, hey, we're back. And we're going to spin the wheel here. So do we have the wheel ready?
It's a bunch of baloney.
We're down
Is the
to
wheel
two.
up? Is it up?
The wheel is
Yay.
Spinning.
Trailer Park
All
of Terror
right.
and Sleepaway Camp.
All right. Are we ready?
Let's do this. Sweep away camp.
Spin.
I want to go Trailer Park of Terror.
I think that's
Oh,
what we're
you're going to
doing.
get it too.
Oh,
Yep,
there we
yep,
are.
yep.
And
Here we go.
Yay.
Trailer Park of Terror.
Pokeball.
kick.
So this is one that will be my first time seeing.
Wow.
So do we remember who it was that added it to the wheel there? Whose suggestion was it?
I love this movie, but it wasn't me, oddly enough.
Oh.
It is to be,
Okay.
by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just looked that up.
Tubi.
Yes, sir.
Really fun
Nice.
things in this
Okay.
movie, and the special features of this movie, which we won't be watching unless you actually like get the DVD or look it up on YouTube. They actually do this really cool thing where they do character interviews in character. So I thought that was actually really fun and really cool in the special features back then. And also, one of the main stars of this movie is very well known on the USA Network. I have to remember her name later. I just don't remember it right now, but she was in a series of like the serious, like cop drama type stuff is like The Sister and a couple different of these USA Network shows. So she actually was doing a lot of much bigger stuff while she actually made it. So like it's got a really interesting cast and a really interesting everything, but it's definitely it's an intentionally fun movie about zombies.
Okay. Well. All right then. So next week, Trailer Park of Terror. It's on Tubi. Till next time, I am your Uncle Necro saying, spay and neuter your friends and seek help.